obviously no individual farmer in Brazil can farm more than he can farm. So there's no reason for him to do a bunch of extra work that is
So,
not being meaningful to him.
so the assumption is that they only deforestation for farms.
Well, no, I was addressing the farm's point that Casual brought up. I haven't addressed any other considerations, but I'm willing to. What other reasons do they cut it down?
Exotic wood types for money.
Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't know to the extent that this is a problem at all. It's a problem because Brazil has not properly dealt with property rights, hasn't put in enough mechanisms of property rights. If they had those property rights and they were smart, they just sell the whole Amazon forest one parcel at a time. And the thing is, lots of it would get undeveloped, but then that would put a stop to any non-authorized non-development. Lots of it would get developed, lots of it would be left undeveloped, but there would be no more random shit like that, where like random people just come in and chop down some of the forest and say, "Okay, I'm going to profit from this now," because it is a shared resource. It should be managed in some sense by that government, though. As long as we have nation states, sovereignty is a critical point to consider. It's not our concern to tell them what to do in general. We could make the argument in this case that it's such a significant shared resource and it's such a global environmental impact that it constitutes a crime against everybody else, and thereby they forfeit their sovereign rights as a country, and we can invade them and take it over and deal with the resource ourselves. But that's really our only choice, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you don't have to do that though, but it is still true. A lot of, I don't remember the number, shit tons of species only exist there. So like biological diversity and oxygen reasons.
Right. I mean, I agree. It's sad. It's bad.
Kind of stupid.
And I'd like them to not cut down the rainforest. But I also agree that I don't
You believe that if people own it, they will be smart enough that they won't ruin it.
I believe if they're not smart enough to own it well, then they won't own it long.
Yeah, they'll just chop it down and they're done with it.
Okay.
Profit.
Let's say that happens. Let's say that happens and they chop down part of it, sell it, profit. And then resell it back. Now that all the lumber's off of it. Well, first of all, shit does grow back. It's not ore. It's not oil. So,
yeah, but it goes back super slow, and the species are extinct forever. And we will never know what could be found there.
okay, but that assumes that each node of the ecosystem has unique species in it.
It's a fact.
Well, no, it's probably subject to the same small world local systems mechanisms that most small world systems are localized are subject to, which is you have multiple nodes for redundancy that function as near equivalents.
But
And
we
then
still find unique substances in the wild that can be used for health purposes, for example.
I agree those are important impacts, but it can't even establish definitively that anything's been made extinct by the behavior that's already occurred. And we can't because either we knew it was extinct already, in which case it was already extinct.
Yeah, but there are
Or-
already species that only exist in that area. So if that area is removed or damaged, that will interfere.
I mean, one can conclude that it's likely that some species are made extinct by,
It's fact.
well, no, it's not.
They only live in a certain type of environment, and if you destroy that environment, they no longer have a place where it's viable for them to live.
Yeah, but there are lots of species that are already extinct.
That's true, and that's
And it
stupid.
doesn't do anything.
So,
Are you missing on them?
so previous mistakes excuse new mistakes.
No, I mean that if they disappear, it doesn't matter.
He's doing an impact argument here. He's saying, point to me where we've suffered from this lack of biodiversity. You're claiming that we need biodiversity in order to achieve medical outcomes, but we've had plenty of species go extinct already, and I don't see any of these biodiversity catastrophes happening to the medical community. That's basically the argument.
Yeah, but it wasn't as developed at that point, so we don't know what we missed out on, if any, or if it was something important, impossible to prove or disprove.
I would point out that the best argument in favor of Susie's position is it's never possible to know what harms we've incurred if we're destroying things that we've not investigated yet. So, as a consequence, we should never destroy things we don't investigate yet because the opportunity cost is too vast. The possible benefits of destroying the thing are small, possible harms of destroying it are massive, and we don't know enough to determine which of those two things it is.
Yes.
An argument against that one would be something like,
You want
Well-
fancy toilet seats from fancy wood? Very important.
That is pretty important. My ass cheeks chap easily. Okay, it's a medical problem for me. I have easily chapped ass cheeks, and so I need a really soft, smooth wood from Brazil to sit on.
I mean, what if by preserving a specific species, you're altering natural selection and making another species that is under that one go extinct, under that one in the hierarchy of chain food.
That
Food
are
chain.
things that happens if you interfere. If you remove one species, it will change everything.
No, but also if you preserve one that is supposed to go extinct because of natural
Or don't
selection.
mess with it.
Well, by preserving it, you're messing with it.
Natural selection is not messing with it.
I mean, the right thing to do would be not to interfere at all. But if you
Yes.
try to not make it go extinct, then you're interfering with it.
Or you can.
Right. She's not saying don't.
Yeah.
She's not saying intervene to protect species. She's saying stop cutting down the rainforest. That's the intervention she wants to engage in, and that's a systemic intervention, so it'll have the results she wants. The point is, when we have a system that functions to preserve everything's interests, be it an economy, a forest, or a society, then the mechanisms have to be preserved over particular instances, in all instances, or else we choose actively to abandon our principles. So in this instance, you'd say the rule should be to err on the side of non-action. That should be the default. That's why affirming a course of action has to have the burden, because failing to affirm something means we go back to the default of doing nothing. And the reason we go back to that default is because doing things always entails risks of unintended consequences. And sometimes those unintended consequences can have impacts that outweigh the impacts predicted. And the predicted impacts are weakly correlated with the actual impacts anyway. And almost always the harms of the mechanisms of enforcement of these rules are not included in the impact calculus by the people advocating for the enforcement of the rules. So in this instance, it's not about an enforcement issue. We're not saying how exactly we should stop migrating to the rainforest. Susie's pointing out, I think correctly, that there are in breach of a general reciprocal burden style duty, which is don't act if you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Pretty much.
In response to that, I would say all actions are taken in the absence of complete knowledge, and it is in fact necessary that we take action to determine the data that we're trying to seek to justify the action in the first place. In other words, if we wait until we have more complete action, we are less capable of making adjustments on the fly. As it needs
But
to be,
in
I know
that specific case, the damage will be irreparable. There's no way to go back. There's no way of doing a test. There's only one.
You can preserve them by putting them in the freezer. I'm serious. Like, put their sperm or something, get their DNA.
Just put it in the freezer.
Guys, hey, World Summit, it's me, it's Casual, I'm from Morocco. I want to tell you, I've got a plan. I'm going to save the rainforest. This is how we do it. We build a giant freezer, put the whole rainforest in the freezer, we save it for later. We'll eat it later. Oh my God, hooray, hooray, say all the delegates at the International Environmental Convention.
The only
good
problem
idea.
would be it would not be possible to recreate it in the same scale with all the species because we haven't even discovered all the species.
Okay, I think maybe then the best argument against your argument, Susie, is one that says it's hubris to presume that the human-altered ecosystems aren't what nature intended. Isn't this, in fact, natural selection doing its job? We're supposed to select away those species that are not useful to us and select instead to execute resource conversion to wealth where it helps us. And so the notion that we should prioritize the ecosystem because it's more natural or pure or true or something to be that way is nonsense, because we are a function and a product of that same ecosystem, and our interests represent the natural forces as well.
We are a product on the function of it, which has learned to cheat the system by tricking natural selection, because natural selection in humans is pretty much not really a thing anymore.
But the system isn't natural selection. The system is evolution. It's evolution of the planet, evolution of the species, evolution of multiple species. So in this particular instance, the evolution of our species subsumes the existence of multiple other species because we're more important.
Yes, and because we are more important, we should not destroy the chances we have of maybe find medical progress in what is yet not to be discovered.
Okay, but that's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. We can't make decisions on what we don't know.
We can for our own good.
I think the better response to that would be the likelihood that there are not additional species to be found with medical benefits in the rainforest approaches zero. And if you're trying to make a claim that teeny fraction of uncertainty regarding the likelihood of finding these additional things is sufficient to call me on an appeal to ignorance fallacy, then you are guilty of a extensional pruning fallacy. Eric would be the best response.
But if I was prepared, I would probably already know about the species they just haven't yet found out how to use, which will be beneficial and only exist in the rainforest.
This little hedgehog thing looks pretty useful. Squeeze its liver and see what comes out, Bob. Whoa. Seems to...
We don't know what this is.
Yeah, we don't know what this is. Could be medicine.
Or we know what it is. We just haven't found out how to make them live in captivity, because many species are not yet figured out how to make them thrive in captivity.
Really?
Yes.
Now I want to own part of the rainforest.
Now you want to own it.
Yeah. Don't worry, I won't chop it down.
You just want to get rich by the resources found in it.
No, I just want to go hunting in the rainforest.
Kill stuff for your own pleasure.
Yes.
Try eating all the plants and see what happens.
But Susie, remember, the fact that guys like to kill shit in the woods is why America's got lots of preserved woods. We didn't chop down all our forests because dudes like to hunt. That's one of the biggest environmental protectors in all of America is the hunting groups, hunting special interests, you know? That's why Teddy Roosevelt preserved all those national parks. So he liked to kill shit. So it's not a good reason, but it's a good outcome.
Have you seen that documentary about how wolves changed rivers?
No.
Changed what?
No, they reintroduced wolves into an area, and it changed the whole ecosystems, including the